Good morning, Chicago Cubs fans. We are back with another edition of Cubs Daily. My name is Steven Ryan. We're going to talk about some confirmation from reports regarding our very favorite Kyle Tucker. We're going to discuss potentially the offseason plans for the Cubs. There are some MLB reporters that are calling out the Cubs to make a big move, that they are overdue. Not saying it's going to happen. Just speculation on the outside. We're going to revisit a potential trade partner in Minnesota, and we will talk about what I think 2026 is going to look like for the Cubs. But before we get into all that, just want to give all of you awesome Cubs fans, a big thank you for continuing to show support in the channel, sharing your thoughts down in the comment section, hitting that thumbs up button if you're enjoying the content, and of course, if you already are subscribed, you're ahead of the curve. But if you are new and you haven't subscribed yet, then what are we waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 1K. So let's talk about it right away. We have confirmed suspicions about what we all knew. I did want to re-sign Kyle Tucker. I still would like to re-sign Kyle Tucker. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Do I think the Cubs should do it? Yes. That's a difference, though. What I think they should do and what they will do will not be the case in this situation, But Jeff Passan, other reporters have confirmed the Cubs are likely to be moving on from Kyle Tucker as he seeks a contract north of $300 million, which is a lot lesser than the speculation what we thought he was going to get all season, especially during that first 2-month stint with the Cubs where his contract was seeming to be in the $500 to $600 million range. That second half of the season for him did really hurt his numbers, though. And remember, when we were talking about Kris Bryant during his free agency period, people were thinking he was going to be that kind of guy. Unfortunately, injuries has really hampered him. He's kind of along the same lines as Kris Bryant. Kris Bryant had a bigger impact with the Cubs. Obviously, we got all the best years out of Kris Bryant, but Kyle Tucker is that special of a talent. He just can't stay healthy. Now, this is where, there's a different dichotomy to things, Should the Cubs spend money? Yes. Will they spend money? Probably not. Does this excuse them not spending money? No. And, I took this from the Lockdown podcast. Those guys do absolutely great work over there, so you guys should check them out as well. You guys probably already do check them out since you guys are following me as well. But, all these things can be true. Maybe the Cubs shouldn't invest in Kyle Tucker because he is injury prone, right? He hasn't had a full healthy season in a while. He's had some big calf injuries this year. The year before, he hurt his leg. There's just a lot of concerns regarding. Now, that doesn't mean the Cubs should not stop pursuing a talent of Kyle Tucker's liking, because we see what his talent brings to this lineup. Now, is there that talent in this free agency pool? I'm not sure. Do I think Kyle Schwarber's an absolute stud of a bat to add to our lineup? Yes. Do I know if he has that same impact that Kyle Tucker does? I'm not 100% sure. Now, the numbers might say he would, but I don't know if he's going to hit 56 home runs again. Hopefully he can come to Wrigley, if he does come to Wrigley, and hit 40-45. That would be amazing. Cubs have not had a 40 home run hitter in a long, long time. Probably since Kris Bryant, honestly. And I think that MVP year, he hit 39, if I'm not mistaken. So, again, would love to see that, but I'm just not sure if that is what is going to be happening or not. And, and odds are, ladies and gentlemen, I do know this. I'm very aware of how the Cubs spend. They don't spend a lot of money. And, again, this is all in preparation for that lockout, right? Yeah, his MVP season, Kris Bryant hit 39 home runs. And then, the other power hitter that we had, Anthony Rizzo, his top year as a Cub, he hit 32 home runs. So, yeah, we have not had a 40 home run hitter in quite some time in Chicagoland. And I think that'd be awesome to see. That's why I suggest names like Pete Alonso. I know it's odds are he's not happening, but that doesn't mean these are things the Cubs should not be pursuing. We should not be banking on Owen Casey and Matt Shaw to develop into these star players. Could they? Sure. Will they? That's not guaranteed. And Shaw's bat needs a lot more development before he even gets close to putting up anything that Kyle Tucker did. at all. And trying to recreate Kyle Tucker in the aggregate is not necessarily going to work either. But unfortunately, looks like the Cubs are going to be moving on. But you saw the potential with him. You saw the potential in that offense when he was healthy. Kyle Tucker is a hell of a baseball player. And his presence, when healthy, will be missed in this lineup. And I'm not sure how the Cubs are going to fill that void in that sense. Share your thoughts in the comments about what you think that void should be. Now, you guys suggest Cody Bellinger. I don't think he fits that mold for me. He's a good baseball player. I don't know if he fills that necessarily. He had 29 home runs this year, or he had a really good season. But again, he played in Yankee Stadium. That's short porch stuff. So, other reports that we're sharing were, Cubs are likely not to target top relief pitching. And again, this just falls in line with who the Chicago Cubs are. They do not go out and spend a lot of money on relief pitching. They like to bargain shop on that front. Now, you guys can blame the bullpen. You can do all that stuff. The Cubs did not have a good enough offense. Plain and simple. One of the best offenses in the league for the first part of the year, sure, not consistent enough in the second half to get the job done. I think the pitching did enough. Where, of course, there's going to be some games where you give up a lot of runs, but losing 3-1 in Game 5, 3 runs, we need to be able to muster up 3 runs. Bottom line. You have to be able to score to win baseball games, plain and simple, and that offense just looked anemic by the end. I would love to add a power bat, but we also need to add some more contact guys. Again, that's why I suggest names like Bo Bichette. Do I know the Cubs are not going to get him? Yes. I'm not a moron. I know a lot of you think I am, and I live in dreamland. I'm aware of that. That doesn't mean the Cubs shouldn't do it. They're probably not. I know they're not. That doesn't mean they should. They should go out and get a contact guy. We need contact hitting. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Dansby Swanson, he's more there for his glove. He's not there because of his bat, okay? Matt Shaw's still a project in development. Ian Happ, his highs and lows are way too discrepant for my liking as a consistent player in our lineup. The only consistent offensive bat in our lineup, contact-wise, is Nico Hoerner. And he's been doing it the longest out of any of these Cubs. So it just looks like, we're going to try and scrape by, and it's going to be more of a developmental season, and that's what we're going to talk about here towards the end of this episode. But just not good reports early on in this free agency. Now, free agency is a long period, and, the fun thing about this is some time and years of control are coming off players, right? And that's kind of where we're going to segue here to Mr. Joe Ryan. Could the Cubs be revisiting a deal with Minnesota, right? Minnesota sold the farm last year, okay, at the trade deadline. Or, I'm sorry, they didn't sell the farm, but they started opening the doors for a garage sale, right? I think Joe Ryan had a little too much value on his contract at that time for any kind of move to be made for him. Now that some of the times come off, this might be a time for the Twins to make that move. Again, I think he has 2 years of control left. This is where it gets really, really tricky with, again, I'm going to say that word. How many times am I going to say that to talk about that lockout in 2027? It's going to impact a lot of decisions. It could be a very, very quiet offseason for the Cubs on that front, right? We might sign a Dylan Cease type, but that's not promised either in that sense, especially with, Shota is going. I think we're going to extend the qualifying offer to Shota, but that's not promised either. I don't want 3 left-handed pitchers that are basically the exact same. We need something different. We need some fresh, lively arms in this rotation and in the bullpen. I just don't know where we're going to find them and where we're going to find them at the price that the Cubs want, right? Like, if you don't want to pay for a Robert Suarez, I hear you. But, again, maybe you find a 1-year deal, right? The Cubs don't sign long-term relievers. We don't do that. We piece the bullpen together, and the bullpen was adequate. It wasn't amazing. It was 3rd in the NL, but it was like 8th overall or 9th overall in baseball. It wasn't anything to ride home about. It got the job done. It got us to the playoffs. It got us to the doorstep of the NLCS. But again, it doesn't mean anything. Now, back to Joe Ryan. Could his price be a little bit cheaper, right? Could we be revisiting that? A lot of people say that Joe Ryan, he's been a really good pitcher over the past few seasons. I'm not denying that. My concern is the price that you're going to pay for him in terms of prospects for what you're asking him to be, right? Now, can he step in and be an ace of a staff? Yes, he's shown flashes, he's shown that potential. But I'm not sure what we would have to give up is worth that, and if he'll become that. Would I like to pair him at the top of this rotation with Cade Horton? I think it would be fun to watch. Now, if the plan is they think Cade Horton's still going to be the ace of the staff, that's something we can rediscuss and revisit. But I don't know what the cost for Joe Ryan's going to be. Obviously, it was way, way, way too high in prospects last season for any team to make a move on him. But we shall see. This is where the Cubs strike, though. They don't necessarily sign big free agents. They make deals. They trade for players with a few years left of control on the roster or on the team, and then they try to extend them. Or if they don't extend them, like Kyle Tucker. But I'm not sure what prospects are going to be in line for the Twins. Would we give up a Jackson Wiggins, right? What's his future looking like? Is he a potential player in the rotation or in the bullpen next season, right? The Cubs need fireballers. Plain and simple, that is my number one off-season request. Can we get one or two arms that throw 99 and hit triple digits from time to time? Obviously, I would love a 103 guy, but that's just not guaranteed. So what can we get? How can we piece this bullpen together to have as much of a successful 2026 season as possible? Because when we're talking about 2026, it just seems like it's going to be a developmental season. And it doesn't seem like the Cubs want to spend. If we're going to spend anything, it's going to be on a one-year deal. It's going to be on a prove-it deal. So if Kyle Tucker doesn't like the market, or Alex Bregman doesn't like the market for multi-years, they might squeeze a couple of one-year deals together, and make a little push in 2026. The Cubs have a lot of players coming off the books after this season, right? I've mentioned it before. Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, Nico Horner, Matt Boyd, Jameson Taillon. Those are some big, heavy hitters, and that's going to be a lot to replace. And we don't have that depth in the minor leagues necessarily. So, not for nothing, the Ricketts will have to spend. So, I could imagine they're not going to spend this offseason. They want to see how this CBA is going to play out. They want to see what the collective, I already said it. They want to see what this is going to look like, right? How much of 2027 are, the Cubs going to play in? And then what does it look like for 2028? They might not mortgage the future. And again, we know this. You can call the Ricketts cheap. You can call him whatever you want. His hands are kind of tied behind his back. You don't want to get overzealous, right? Like, yeah, we could go all in for 2026, but what good is it going to do? Are we going to beat the Dodgers still? Is there enough out there and talent for us to compete with the Dodgers? I don't know. I don't think so. And we all kind of know how baseball works in that sense. It's a crapshoot. I don't like the mentality of saying, let's just fight to get in the playoffs and it's a crapshoot. I think when, it's your turn to strike, you have to take that chance. But, a suggestion made here in the comment section is like an Eugenio Suarez, right? We'll talk about Eugenio Suarez. He's getting a little bit older, but he's still a power bat. He would be an excellent addition in this lineup as a DH, right? Still let Matt Shaw play third. Still let Matt Shaw get some at-bats. Occasionally spare a day off for him. So, et cetera, et cetera. We can get more lineup flexibility. I'm starting to like a lot of these different possibilities, but yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot of plug and play in this free agency period. I'm not sure how many multi-year deals there are going to be. Maybe there's, a 4 or 5 year deal the Cubs make, but there's an opt-out after one season, There's just a lot of different possibilities that are going to be taken, and I'm not sure how it's going to play out. I am not an expert. I don't try to live in quote-unquote dreamland, but this is also fun discussion topics, right? I like thinking about it in this aspect. Could the Cubs go out and get a couple players to make a big impact and win the division? I think so. But is it worth winning the division in 2026 while costing us the years after? That is a great question, and always a delicate balance that this front office tries to take in its stride. The number one alarming thing, though, is we all saw what they made in 2024 in terms of gross revenue and what they spent on the payroll. That is alarming to us fans, and we know you're raising the prices. So you better return the favor with that product on the field being as consistently good as possible. You don't have to go all in. You don't have to do what Jed Hoyer did in 2017 and 2018, trying to make moves to supplement the team, right? Like in 2018, remember we picked up Daniel Murphy, and that was the summer of David Bodie, and just a lot of different random things happen for the team to get back to the wild card game. You don't have to do that necessarily, but we need to build the infrastructure, right? We made the wild card this year. That's great. How do we win the division, and how do we take the division back from the Milwaukee Brewers? And that's my question, right? So if going out to get a Joe Ryan is that move, then I don't mind that, but you better plan on re-signing him almost immediately. You better go out trade for him. You better sign him to a 5-year, $125 million deal, and he better be the rotation of your staff. Better be one of the top 2 pitchers in your staff for the next 5 years. Like, you just have to do that. So, it's a lot of doom or gloom situation, especially during this offseason, but I appreciate everyone who stuck around with me through this video. I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day. And again, if you guys are enjoying the content, hit that thumbs up button, share your thoughts down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.